Hello Troglodyte Tribe and welcome back. Today we're looking at Badge by Cream. There is another video where I play through this arrangement that I've made from start to finish, but in this video we're going to look at it lick by lick. If you listen to this track on headphones, you'll notice that most of the way throughout, it's a guitar on the one side and then piano on the other. And what I'm trying to do with my arrangement is how would I interpret this for a three-piece band where you've got drums, you've got bass, and the guitar has to cover the other instruments. So this guitar arrangement is actually an amalgamation of the guitar parts and the piano parts with a few extra little bits on myself thrown in. So to start with, I'm using the back pickup on a Les Paul to get the rhythm sound, and I've got the tone turned down a touch just to thicken it out, and the volume turned down quite a bit, and then I've got the front pickup with the tone turned down a touch and the volume up full. That gives me that real boost for when it comes to the solo. So you can see that sort of jump in volume I'm doing with the pickups. I do have a tube screamer, Ibanez 808 tube screamer. I'll put a picture on for the screen now just to give it that extra bit of bite into a Marshall DSL 50. But once I've done the solo, it's very hard to strip back to the quiet level. It just feels a little hollow. So I've kept the energy quite high and the distortion quite high at that point. So I've even added in an extra sort of low E just because it felt like it dipped at one point. So on the last verse, you'll hear me going just to pad out what was a small dip before that extra few licks that come in. So let's go to the start of the track and work our way forward. It's based around an A minor chord and a D major chord. Now, you'll notice that actually on the guitars, it's just that rhythm, it's that chop all the way through. But there's a keyboard part going on as well and a bass part. So what I'm trying to do is, although I think the original is based around there and then up to there, I'm actually doing it down here on the open A position where I'm just doing the first few strings on the A chord, and then I'm doing second finger on the 3rd fret and the little finger on the 5th fret to give you that, and then on just the first finger bridged across the D and the G strings. So now I've got, and then I slide up, which is second finger on the 5th fret on the A string, then the first finger on the 4th fret of the D string, and then the little finger on the 7th fret on the G string, and that gives me that chord. Yeah, we've got to be careful on this, is if you don't catch that note there, which is the accidentally catching the 2nd fret on the B string. Now we're into verse 1. So I'm doing an A minor shape, but without the low E string. So I'm doing the 7th fret with my 3rd finger on the A string, then my little finger I'm doing the 7th fret on the D string, and then I'm using my first finger to bar the top 3 strings. Yeah? Okay, so it's... And what I'm doing there is I'm using my little finger to come off the D string and go onto the G string on the 7th fret, and then off, and then back onto the D string, 7th fret. But you see how I keep trying to keep that rhythm going wherever possible. And that's just muted and just gently touching the strings. I'm playing this incredibly lightly, by the way, barely touching the strings. And then first finger, slide up to making a D shape effectively. So I'm barring the 7th fret, D, G, B strings, and then with my 2nd finger onto the 8th fret on the B string. Yeah, so it's all together. And now now I'm doing this sort of E minor-y thing. So, but I'm not playing the low few strings. I'm starting from the D string. So third finger on the D string on the 9th fret, fourth finger on the 9th fret on the G string, and then my first finger is barred across the B and an E on the 7th fret. And then with my spare finger, my second finger, I can hammer that onto the E minor, the third, which is on the 8th fret on the B string. So you do that twice, okay? So let's take it through. And now we're into the C major chord, but I'm just doing the chops on this. So I'm just barring it there with my little finger across the 5th fret on the D, G and B string, with my first finger holding the root note down on the 3rd fret on the A string. Then the A minor, same as before. And now the B minor, so that's up to the starting on the 7th fret. And then this beautiful chord. I love this chord. Okay, so this is the 3rd finger on the A string on the 7th fret. And then with your first finger, you are barring the 5th fret on the D, G and B strings. And then with your little finger, you are putting it onto the top E string on the 7th fret. So let's take through the C section. Then you just hold that chord, and then to get back into it, there's this run, which is your open E, low E, 3rd fret, the G note, 4th fret, the G sharp, and then to the A on the 5th fret. Now you could do it with an open A, but that just leads you back into the verse. And the verse, I'm doing exactly the same as I did before. And the verse, I'm doing just as exactly as before. So I'll take that run in and go through the verse. Now this is where it changes, and this is actually my favourite part of the whole track. So it goes. Okay, let's piece that together very slowly. So you do your C chord as before, and I'm just playing the A, D and the G strings. Then, with your 3rd finger, slide from the 5th fret on the A string up to the 7th. And now I'm playing with my first finger the D string on the D string on the 5th fret. And then, with my 3rd finger, going to the 7th fret on the D string. And I'm actually doing the G string holding on the 5th fret as well to give you that double stop. Then off. And then back down to the 7th fret on the A string. And then back to the 5th fret on the D string. So it gives you. Yeah. And now we're into the A minor-y sort of shape. So that's the C chord. We're outlining the C. That's the 3rd of the C. The fifth, the octave, and that's the 9. So now to the A minor chord. So what I'm doing there is the third finger on the D string on the 7th fret, and then my first finger is barring G, B and E strings all on the 5th fret. But I'm just sort of playing the D string, G string and then the top 2. So all together it goes. Now here's the fun bit. This is, and again this is different to the track because it's 2 guitars, but this is how I'm hearing the important notes. So with my 3rd and 4th finger. 3rd finger on the G string on the 5th fret. Little finger on the 5th fret on the top E string. Slide it from the 5 to the 7 and then back down. So all together, so far, that sounds. Now, we've got this, which is a, on your 3rd finger on the D string on the 7th fret, pull off to the 5 on the same string, 1st finger, and back on again. But as it goes back on, try and chop the barred notes on the 5th fret behind it. And that's, he's not doing that on one guitar. There's one guitar doing a chop and another guitar doing, but I'm trying to blend the 2 together. So you hear that? So far leading up to it, we have got okay, so now we're moving up to the B minor chord. So whilst your 3rd finger is on the D string on the 7th fret, just slide that up to the 9. And then as before, 1st finger, bringing that minor 3rd, so you're on the 7th fret on the G string. And then barring the top 2 strings. Yeah? Now, we've got this, which is on the G string on the 7th fret, hammer on to the 9 and pull off, and then down to the 9th fret on the D string, and then you do the B and the G string on the 7th fret, then back down to the 9th fret on the D string. Yeah? So all together. And one more time, all together slowly, and we're going to end with that chord that we did earlier, which is your 3rd finger on the 7th fret on the A string. You bar the rest on the 5, and then with your little finger on the 7 on the top E string. Okay, so let's try that slowly. And then up to speed. Love that part of the song. Okay, and now the supports. Now it's time for that famous lick in the middle. And what that is, it's highlighting a few basic chords. The first chord being D. So you play the open D note. Then you put your 3rd finger on the 4th fret on the D string. Then your 2nd finger on the 2nd fret on the G string. Basically doing a D major triad. Now we're moving to the C chord. So C note, which is your 2nd finger on the 3rd fret on the A string. And now we're going to do an open D string, open G string, open B string. Then we're going to take it down to the B. So you take the 2nd fret on the A string. Then you're going to do the open D string. You're going to skip over the G. You're not playing that anymore. We're going to go straight to the B. Now we're going to go to the G. So this is going to be the 3rd fret on the low E string. And we're going to skip over the A string, we're going to skip over the D string and the G string, and we're going to go straight to the B string. And so all together, that sounds so far. And again. And now we're back to sort of a D shape. Open D string, 2nd fret on the G string, and then 3rd fret on the B string, and then you're going to go up and then down. So it goes D string, 2nd fret on the G string, 3rd fret on the B string, and then back down again. So together it now sounds. This can take a little while for that, particularly because of those jumps. You're missing a string, then you're missing several strings, and then you're playing every string. So just very carefully going through that slowly. Okay, so it does that a bunch of times, and then, boom, solo time. Now, obviously, just being the one guitar, I'm trying to, because there is another guitar going jing, jing, down, pushing those chords, but I felt it was more important to keep that rhythm going of that arpeggiated chords, rather than doing those push chords at that moment. So now it's time for the solo. So this is kind of around the D minor pentatonics, but with majory things in there as well. So let's start with the 13th fret on the B string with a good old-fashioned boomer bend. So you can see that I'm going... and then bending down. So it goes... and then that is the 10th fret on the B string. Then bending, another boomer bend on the 12th fret on the G string. Jumping a string and then going to the 10th fret on the top E. And then bending that 12th fret again. Releasing it to the 10th. Now, you'll notice that I am really digging in with all these extra kind of harmonics and noises, and I'm doing that on purpose. So this song at this point has got piano, it's got two other guitars going on, it's a solo. We haven't got that in this arrangement. I've got, in my head, I've got my drums and a bass player, and the guitar is trying to cover all the rest of it, so I'm trying to make it sound huge. And for me, one easy trick for that is to just be a little bit sloppy, and that really helps my style because I am just that little bit sloppy. And I really like that sound, but if you want to play it super clean, you can do. but I really quite like that. That kind of like larger sound. Now from here, we're going to go to the 12th fret on the D string. Now this is where we move from that minor to major feel again. 10th fret on the G string up to the 11th fret. Yeah, so minor, major over the D. And then we're jumping a string and going up to the top, a string going to the top E on the 10th fret. And then we're going to the 10th fret on the B string. And now we're bending from the 12th fret on the top E string. And then releasing it down to the 10th fret on the top E string. So we've got... Okay, now we are 10th fret again on the B string, and now we're bending from the 13th fret on the top E string. So can you hear that? That's kind of bending in between, it's releasing a bit, but it's not all the way released. So it's... And that takes a bit of practice, but you'll get there. And it's not, it's kind of in between notes. It's good old fashioned sort of sound. So let's take it all together so far. So you kind of got that from the 10 on the top E to the 10 on the B string, which is the 12 bend on the top E, down, release to the 10, 12, 10, 12, and now we are 10 on the top E, 10 on the B string, and then bend the 12 and then release it. And again, that's just a 12, 10, 12, 10. So let's take you from the start so far. And this is now where we start to slide into a different position. So we're going to go 10 on the B string, hammer on the 12 on the B string, 10 on the top E string, and then slide to the 15 on the B string. Because this is now taking us into a new position. Now this next lick, you're in the next position up, so 13th fret on the top E string with your first finger, but it's actually slightly bent. With your first finger, that's quite hard to do, but you can get there. And then you bend from the 15th on the top E string, release, pull off to the 13th on the E string, and then again slightly bending that top E string, and then it's two notes on the 15 on the B string. So the next lick is, which is bending the 15 on the top E string, releasing, pulling off to the 13, back to the 15, back to the 13, and then back to the 15 on the B. And then you're straight into a bunch of bends, I think 6 on the 15th fret on the top E. So these bends are 6 bends, but on the last one it's kind of a, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That makes sense? So you got 6 bends in total, but they're just bending up the first 5. And the 6th one is a bend up, release down to the pull off on the 13th fret. And now we're into another position. So you've done your 6 bends. You kind of then slide up to the 16th fret on your G string, 15th fret on your B string, 17th fret on the B string, bend, and with your little finger pick the 17th fret on the top E string while still holding that bend. And it gives you that lovely sort of phasey sort of, it's country but with the extra distortion, it's got that lovely sort of grind. And then so then you pluck the bent string on the 17th on the B string, release it down, pull to the 15th fret on the B string. Now, when you didn't think you could do any more bends, there's a big bend. Okay, so on the 17th fret on the top E string, big slow release, and then jump to the 17th fret on the B string. Yeah, so you got, and then back to the 15th fret on the B string. To piece that part together. Now to end that lick off, you go back to the 16 on the G string, and then back to the 15 on the B string. So to take that last part, but now you do the 16th again on the G string, and then 2 on the 15. Do that again. And then to end it, you just do an extra 15 on the B, down to the 16 on the G. And now we bend from the 17th on the B string, but slightly overbend. You hear that slightly? I keep bending too far. Okay. So now it's time for, you guessed it, another bend. This time we're going up to the 18th fret on the B string. And we're bending up, releasing the bend, but only a little bit. And then up and down, up and down. So we're bending and we're just bending in between. Hear that? Okay, so the next part is not a bend. So we're going to go 16 on the G string, hammer on from the 15 to the 17 and release on the B string. I do like to slide into that 16 for some reason. So now we're going to go down to the 12th fret on the G string. On the second finger, slide up to the 14. First finger, B string on the 13th fret. Then back to the 14th fret on the G string, slide back down to the 12. And then pull off to the 10 on the G string. And then you're doing the 12th fret on the D string, pull off to the 10, back onto the 12. For anybody who's seen Hollyoaks, it's pretty much that. So go. Yeah. Now we've got this 10 fret on the B string, hammer on to the 12th on the B string, and then pluck the 10th on the top E twice. Yeah. And then back to the 10 on the G string, and then hammer onto the 12th, and then pull it off quite fast. Now, some people think he bends up, and I think he might do, but I quite like this hammer on pull off thing. It's up to you how you want to do it. Yeah. So now I've got, that's the lick. Then down to the 12th fret on the on the D string. So you got, and then back to the 10th fret on the G string, back to the 12th fret on the D string, to the 10th fret on the D string, and then to the 12th fret on the A string. So, and that kind of ends the solo. Okay, so we're through the solo. Now it's into the last verse. So it's back to the A minor, but we're still on this sort of really crunchy, loud sound. So I'm just owning it and just keeping the energy high. And this is when instead of going to that E, because I'm going to jump back to a solo for a bit, I just want some noise around me. So I'm just going to go drop to that low E note and then sort of pluck that top E as well. And that just gives us that kind of big energy, aggression kind of thing. So now it's the another bendy lick. This is not exactly the same as what it does on the record, but I really like it, and so it's kind of a weird interpretation of it. So this is the E minor pentatonic shape now we're working on. So bending from the 14 on the G string, and then doing the 12 and the 12 on the B and E. And then back to that bend again, and then jump straight to that top E. Yeah? And then bending that 12 again, bending that 14 again on the G. And then bringing that little finger onto the 14th fret. And then holding that bend still on the 14. And that's bringing that little finger then up to the 15. So. And then releasing that 14 bend. And then doing a 12, 14, 12. And then back down to the rhythm again, even more energy. And then an even bigger E. Okay, so we've got this big ringing E going on. On the 15th fret, so we're still around the E minor pentatonic shape, pre-bend the G string, the B string, and bring it down. Then the 12th fret on the B string, then pre-bend the 14 on the G string, bring it down, and then 12 on the G string. And that's just a 14 on the D, 12 on the D. Now, I think he slides around the 10th on the A string. But because I want to end up at this big aggressive C chord down here, I'm actually going to stay on the D string and make my slide much lower and change the position to be on the 7th and 5th fret around the D strings. So I'm going to slide all the way down to the 7 on the D string, to the 5 on the D string, then 7 again on the D string, faster, pull off to the 5 on the D string, 7 on the A string, then back to the 5 on the D string, and then to the 5 on the G string. And that, you'll see, is my C note. And that means I can easily just bar around there and get that C chord, the aggressive C chord that I've been looking for. Yeah. And then we're up to the A minor. Except this time it's more of a chug to chug. Okay. And now the big finale. Well done for making it this far. This I've got worked out as first finger on the top E string on the 5th fret, third finger on the 7th fret on the B string, and the second finger on the 7th fret on the G string. That's all it is. And then slide with that second finger up to the 9 on the G string. Then with your third finger, bar the top 2 strings on the 10th fret, 12th fret, then 10th fret again. So we got, yeah. Now, this is where, again, there's different guitars ending it. I think one guitar is doing like, which is your little finger across the 12th fret on the top 2 strings, and then your first finger on the 9th fret on the G string. But I'm not. I like to go back to this chord. I love the sound of that chord. So to reiterate, that chord is third finger on the 7th fret on the A string. Your first finger is barring the other strings with your on the 5th fret, and your little finger is playing the top E string. So we've got, so to play my aggressive ending version, which is not like the track, it's like bits of the track but with extra bits in, it sounds a little bit like. There you have it. Well, I hope you've enjoyed that. I've really enjoyed working it out. And as always, there's loads of different videos on this channel. If you enjoyed this one, maybe there's other videos out there that you might enjoy. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.